Hello, welcome to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money. Pretty much everything under the sun relates to you having a happier, healthier relationship with money. I want to thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing it with your friends and family. We have over 600,000 listeners here in the States and over another 100 and some odd thousand overseas. So we're really grateful for that. Today, we have one heck of a show. For some reason, on our lines, our viewers' lines, everybody's getting concerned about the Secure Act number 2, even though it went into effect at the beginning of this year. So I'll be going over those changes. But today we've got a wonderful topic. It's an important topic. And you know what? We're going to call it the Silver Tsunami. Okay, so I just want to start with this. Currently, 45 million people are over the age of 65. And they're supported by many programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and so on. In the next 7 years, that number will double to 90 million people. It creates the need for a new way of thinking, new technology, innovation, ways for families to provide for and support their aging loved ones going through, downsize, diagnosis, debt, death, the whole shot. Now, we have a specialist here, Tony Siebers. He's here to help us understand the financial impact of all this, importance of being well prepared, how to walk through these inevitable life stages and do it well. Now, this is a big topic for me, and I'm glad to have Tony here because most of my parents are 87. My wife's parents are 80. And as somebody who provides financial support and help for people, I deal with this all the time. And I think it's wonderful that we have an expert like Tony here to walk us through it. And just to give you a little background on Tony, he's currently the CEO of Family Media Technology Group, as well as the founder of and president of Parent Projects. In fact, you probably want to go check out that podcast. Tony is a contributing member of Forbes Nonprofit Advisory Council. He's a nationally accredited senior move manager and senior real estate specialist. He also has a license for real estate in Arizona. Tony's also a former law enforcement military officer. He was given, when I was checking you out, I was like, oh, wow. He's been awarded a number of awards or medals in the military. So thank you for your service, Tony. But the big thing is he's got decades experience with crisis management, as well as team building experience. But you know what? When you're dealing with this transition of people who are getting older, the ones especially you love, you're really walking into crisis management. You know what? Won't go into it because I get really excited about this topic. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Appreciate it.
So, you know what? I know you were working as a move manager early on, and you didn't think you were doing enough, and then you started Parent Projects. So walk me through, what you're seeing, what was going on, and what brought you to where you are today.
About 2015 or so, I had a parent project. I had a grandparent who was grandmother was holed up in Sedona. I'm out of Phoenix area. When I got up there, I just saw the impact. It was it wasn't the first time, but one of the first times I really felt compelled to kind of lean in, and the family needed the time that I had available to be able to help out. And I saw there was a lot of confusion, a lot of decisions were made in guilt and in fear, a lot of conversations that needed to be held that hadn't been held, and now we were probably a little too late to have them be held. And being a guy that after the military, I went into corporate restructuring and corporate strategy to help with emergencies or a product that's coming out and it didn't go well, or whether a turnaround on a particular brand. And I just recognized that this was an industry that was ripe for some level of clarification and clarity, because I knew I wasn't alone. I mean, I knew my parents dealt with it. I knew my grandparents dealt with it. I knew my kids are going to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And so that was really how I started looking at. That's how I left corporate. Literally, just decided, okay, this is it. This is my calling. I'm going to understand how these transitions are done and how we can better do it as families. And that was before even learning about the Silver Tsunami. I just felt compelled.
Wow. And I can see that because when you talk about the fear, I think one of the big problems is, and my folks are the same way, they're 87. And my dad had a hip replacement, but we didn't really find out until like 2 weeks before. And that's because somebody let it slip. And they're in a position where they don't want to bother their kids And here we are, you know what, we're dealing with it. And you know what, my dad's got to have a knee surgery or knee replacement now. We're lucky he's in great shape and all that, but you know what, it's now figuring out, okay, who's going to help him? Because my mom's 87, she can't lift him out of bed.
Yeah.
uh,
Well,
so
these, I was going to say the statistics too of the family caregiver dying before the person they're taking care of is astounding. I've heard statistics as high as 40%, particularly when they're older, when both are over the age of 75. And it is aware, if you've been a family caretaker or stepped into that role and started through it, you really feel that. And it doesn't end, there isn't a break. It is just, it's the next day and the next day and the next day. And so having some solutions to that, it's very isolating feeling. They don't want to interrupt on you. You want to respect their autonomy. That really probably becomes one of the top pieces of it. Hopefully we're trying to protect
mhm.
their autonomy. We want them to make as many decisions as long as possible in a good mindset, in a healthy mindset. But I think there's some reality. There's a couple of really big realities. So just, we have to emotionally process on the way.
You know what? I totally agree with that. I've seen many times where that autonomy that people want to have, and they feel that they're losing because they start forgetting things, start forgetting where it is, all that kind of stuff, it is scary to people. I see my parents they're not on the bridge of that, but you know what? I've seen a lot of people where they're starting to lose some of that memory, that short-term memory. But they really want to stay driving, and sometimes it's scary to see them driving. So you have to make changes. So, and then I also see kids that don't want to see their parents like that, so they kind of avoid it. It's almost like sticking their head in the sand.
Right.
And they get involved, or they're forced to be involved, and too late. And some kids don't want to be involved.
Right.
Some of it scares the heck out of them. So it's a really interesting dynamic. Now, what I'd like you to do is let's start talking about understanding the financial impact of all this.
Yeah. Well, so you set the tone of the silver tsunami, by the way, just in the United States with what you were talking about. So the majority of the world they utilize entitlement programs to protect the last, lost, and least, right? And as I just left as chairman of the board of Catholic Charities here in our Phoenix area, those are organizations that are very well spread out to see where they can fill in the gaps of government, right? And that
Mhm.
nonprofit and that NGO, a lot of public-private partnership work. The reality is, in the United States, 90 million people on the entitlement systems like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, even if they're not all going to be sick, but just that sheer amount of administrative burden, a doubling in 6.5 years from now, near doubling. That's going to leave a lot on the nonprofit world. And the visibility there, I saw the nonprofit world we can't get organized quite quick enough. And where we are and how things are postured, this is going to fall down to families. If you don't understand where you're going to get involved, you're probably not going to like where you get involved. And there's the majority of business today, I think, that work through this industry, in the aging industry, you're dealing with mom and dad as the client. And the reality is, because of business processes that make your business use online statements or other things that we're doing in automation, are separating us against that and leading to the adult children really being a primary driver and influence in their parents and how it's done.
Mhm.
And that's financially hitting them as the silver tsunami washes ashore, if you will. It's going to impact us. We have an environment in which a single healthcare incident can wipe out a lifetime of retirement savings. I think
Mhm.
I recall seeing that you're a cancer survivor and your family is as well. My wife is, and we just, that's still, it's $1 million to fight cancer, and 1 in 8 women get breast cancer and other forms of it that sit out there. That's a lot to prep through. And in the back end of life, healthcare it can get really, really expensive. And there's a whole slew of conversations for another call or another time that we have a conversation about how you, in a healthy way, how you weigh that against that healthy lifestyle retirement that your parents really want, or past retirement.
Mhm.
So that's, I think, where it starts to hit you is that budget does play a role. guilt does play a role when you start in this. There is a way out of that. And as you get yourself out of guilt and fear and start making decisions with love and laughter, we just find that we make better decisions. They're better grounded. They help us from a more healthy aspect tackle the problems that mom and dad are facing. We understand the reality that even the last decisions for most of us won't be made by us. They'll be carried out by somebody else. They'll be carried out by whomever that we choose, a child or a fiduciary or someone else to do it, whether it be burying you and handling your remains at one level, or it backs itself all the way up to the last 5 or 6 or 10 years of your life, depending on medical conditions. The ability for you to have these conversations early and often as a family, to know how they would want you to carry out, what talking with mom and dad, what's important for them to do. Not that they're belaboring you with the challenge, but understanding as they work through and they have to make those decisions in their stead, or you have to make decisions in their stead. How would they want you to do that? What would they want you to think about? Then you can start processing the financial impact of, okay, so how do we do that? At least I know what A looks like, so I can start mapping myself there.
So you know what, I want to take a quick little break because we got a lot to unpack in the second half. And I think this is wonderful. Stick with us, everybody. We'll be right back with more Tony Siebers. You know what? We're going to be talking here about I call it the silver hair tsunami. Sorry, it's the silver tsunami. And it's just something you really want to be part of and listen to so you can understand how to help the ones you really love. So stick with us. We'll be right back. Okay, Cameron, that's completion of segment 1. Let's walk into segment 2. I love this. I can legitimately, I've gone to podcasts and stuff like that. Everybody's got to add in the commercials and everything. Yeah. And I like to be able to have the commercial get added in later. So even if I mess up a little bit, somebody can edit it out, and then all that commercials and all that stuff can be added in later, and I don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely.
So, okay, hey, here we go. Cameron, we're going to be starting on segment 2 with Tony Siebers. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome back to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money. Pretty much everything under the sun relates to us having a healthier, happier relationship with money. Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you sharing this with your friends and family. All the replays are available at savingwithsteve.us. If you're enjoying the stories of helpful information, insights on Saving with Steve, I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Never miss a show. I want to send out some love to our affiliates at UK Health Radio, BBS Radio, Talk Radio New York City, E360 TV, Las Vegas TV networks. All these networks are dedicated to empowering you to solve problems, uplift your spirits, and live a life of personal financial freedom. And again, you can check us out on Facebook at Saving with Steve Sexton. You can get the behind the scenes stuff, the guest gifts, the whole shot. So with that, I want to bring back Tony Siebers. I'm thankful that you're here, Tony. And I really want to ask this question. What are kind of the steps to back that up? What are the signs that people should be looking at when it's time to start having these conversations with mom and dad or your loved ones?
Great question. They're going to vary a bit from family to family. So don't, make sure you give yourself a little bit of leeway here if you're not picking this up, right? For some, it's going to be from a financial perspective. Bills aren't getting paid on time, or there's a lot of confusion, or, as you visit the house, holiday times are great. Like Thanksgiving, right after Thanksgiving and Christmas, you just see an influx of, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how bad this slide had happened. Piling up of bills, things not happening, or confusion from there. Lots of sticky notes around showing that maybe there's a change in how they're setting up their routine, or crutches of things that are set up, being very particular about that. It's just going to let you know they're starting to, that we're starting to work in that. Or that might be one thing that's showing. Also say, involving, you should get yourself affiliated or associated with those, the professionals that advise your parents, and your parents should want that really as soon as possible. So whoever works on the taxes, because that's a great opportunity to understand once a year everything that's going on. Like, where's the money coming in from? How's it coming on? Are they doing that? Do they understand where things are at and how to manage that? The medical side. who's the doctors? Who are they treating? Do they have an understanding? Is it a referral base where they're running around town and seeing 6 or 7 different people, and one may have one story, but another has another, and you're never quite feeling like you're getting the whole story of what it is. Well, that could be not because of age. That could just be because of the way the system's structured with a PPO or an HMO, or Medicare for that instance. So you're going to look to those things, probably would be some of the first signs, other than the normal memory things happen. But we try to stick too clear of just pinning it down onto age, because you've got 95-year-olds. I've had 95-year-olds that function, as well as I could function on a stressful day. And you've got people that are 65 that are really struggling. So I think you can't quite pin it to age. You just got to be aware of those surroundings. Check in when you are there. I would say listen, and do more listening when you get in there than talking. And think about how we say attraction over promotion in almost all things we do at Parent Projects. In order to advise, your parents don't want to be sold anything on the outside, so don't try to sell them something. Find where it is they're trying to go and be an enabler, and find some small thing that you can enable for them. Chances are that will help give you exposure to other signs to help you understand the depth of the situation. Is a great place to start.
That's wonderful, because I was just thinking through that checklist with my folks, and I know most of those. I just don't know the doctors. So
there is a really and it's a good thing, because those are one of those really hard ones at the moment you need to, because you've got documentation, you have HIPAA, you've got maybe power of attorneys. That can be so much more complex down the road than it is in the front end with just simply an introduction. And these days, most doctors' offices can set up a video teleconference and are willing to do that. Now, 5 years ago, it was pulling teeth. It was hard. Today, that's a great thing out of COVID. Post-COVID, everybody's like, oh yeah, we get VTC. We can do that. It's not going to be a HIPAA problem. Like, mom says they want their daughter in, I could get their daughter in there. So that's a thing. That other aspect I'd throw in is money matters in a lot of this, and not just for us and our wallets, but knowing the payer model. If it's Medicare, if it's a Medicaid system in your respective state. Here in Arizona, it's all tax, it's Oregon Health Plan, it's different things in different states. But know the difference between them. Know if it's long-term care insurance. Well, that's a payer model. Whomever is going to be covering the bill, there's a language to learn. And I think most of us, self included, thought that one day I would wake up and like the Medicare fairy would sprinkle in my head. This is what it is, and this is where it works. And then, all this, and because it's confusing, and most of us see it, especially as we approach that 62 in retirement or those benchmarks in ourselves, and we're like, oh my gosh, no wonder my mom and dad are having such a hard time with this. This really stinks. But the communication model that's secret to that, I would say, is understanding activities of daily learning, activities of daily living, ADLs. The ADLs conversation are the common ways that an outside payer model really is structured to understand what level of assistance a human being is going to need. And they map what they can handle, what can be paid for, what's there. It's that secret language. So great starting point. And we've got tutorials and quick videos in 90 seconds, that'd help out, but there's a lot that's out there. You're looking for that. Once you get an understanding of that, it's a great starting place.
Okay. So I know we're in the middle and I usually do this then, but I'm going to ask you to do it again. Where can people go to get the videos?
Great. So parentprojects.com is where you can go to start getting aligned. If you're, in real estate, we'd say a looky-loo. If you're just trying to get yourself acclimated and don't know what you don't know, it's a great place to start. We've organized we've been collecting these clickbait articles from around the internet now for years, and we turn them into 90-second to 3-minute videos, and then give them back to the authors for free and say, hey, this is the way our audience really wants to see this. By the way, that audience typically is, so don't feel weird if you or alone. If you are a 50 to 65-year-old working mom, generally, that is balancing taking care of an adult kid or, providing some financial assistance to some maybe still in high school, and you've got mom and dad coming up with work and home, like there are millions of you. There are
Mhm.
millions of you. Uh, you're not isolated. It is just simply by starting there. So it works that way. And then, I wanted to move on from helping just the families that could drop, that would go hire someone for $5,000 to $15,000 to kind of handle everything. We wanted a solution, and we're in a drive to a solution to get it down to within $4 a month. We wanted it under $200 so that the average family could have access to that information. We ended up building an AI platform that had the ability to function like a Netflix from that video, bringing that content into
Uh-huh.
play, along with maybe the way the knot with a bump or other types of user-friendly systems that help you understand what order to do the tasks, and then connects you out with vendors. So without, that shameless plug over onto the parent projects, there's different levels at which you might be ready for. If you're truly ready to engage, the system works great from that. Outside of that, parent projects is one place where we go. There's a lot of content that's out there. What we try to do is orient people very quickly, succinctly, with that 40 minutes today you have on the project.
Oh, no, I think that's wonderful because I've been looking at those and I go, oh, I wish my clients had these years ago.
Right.
So
Yeah.
here's one of the things that I want to ask, and this is something I dealt with because of my cancer, and it's going back to those billing codes and all that kind of stuff that
Mhm.
I actually found almost $30,000 that shouldn't have been on my medical bills when I was going through cancer. And then just as my understanding what the codes were, because mine was a stomach colon cancer surgery, and all of a sudden I've got a splint being charged for my leg. I'm like, really?
Right.
So when somebody's dealing with the payer model, whether it be Medicare, Medi-Cal, or long-term care, what is the important thing to do? Is it important to read the actual contract of the policy to see what is actually covered, so you know what's going to be covered? What would be your best advice with that?
Steve, I'm going to give you the straight up advice for this. Whether this is something that we might do at most maybe 4 times in our life, okay, is step into this. To think that we're going to be awesome at it or expect ourselves to be absolutely awesome at this doesn't quite make sense. This is one where you want somebody who can really help you for that, honestly. And you've gotten down, it sounds like you dove into the ICD-10 codes to understand, what came into what and and that, by the way, changes constantly, right? And
Oh yeah.
and you find, in fact, when you pull on that string of a problem, it may be because somebody fat fingered an entry. It might be because of just the way they typically bill something, or how they were trying to get a pre-authorization to help you out. So they're trying to rush you through it. Like there's a lot of, not always nefarious, just systematic inefficiencies in that. That's a danger of the Silver Tsunami, by the way, when government has to work through all of that. So what I would say is there's an awesome there are 73 industries of business that we work with, 73 people to come at you. But one of the most important for what you're talking about is called a healthcare advocate. And these are former nurses, some are doctors, some are retired physicians or others, but generally usually someone who has worked down at that hands-on level. They understand the ICD-10 kind of code side. They've worked from that processing there, and they can step in and help. First of all, they're a third party in case mom's not comfortable being in her women's health appointment, you being in that women's health appointment, right? Where they're dealing with, increased UTIs because she's not drinking water as much as she used to because she doesn't want to go pee so much. So she's sitting in her chair, and these are real things, but it's difficult for you and I to jump into.
Well, I'm actually laughing because I've heard this before.
Oh, okay. Well, these are,
Not from my
see
mom,
that,
but other clients.
that's how much we're not alone. That's how much we're not alone. And look, we say, if you've seen one parent project, you've seen one parent project, but the reality is there are so many efficiencies if you have the right person at the right time doing the right thing. And it's not that it's not rocket science. There is a lot to it. That's where we had to leverage and help machine learning to really get us there. But straight down to the bottom of your point, with fewer words, we use a healthcare advocate to help us work through that personally, because that's, yeah. And I see thousands of these.
I'm going to say this. I totally agree with you. One of the things that I found out going through my process is I talked to a healthcare advocate who basically says, you know what, medical services are like any business. There's some ones, good ones or bad ones. If you have a good healthcare advocate, they can help you direct towards good services and leave less frustration because you have better communication and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd leave it there. I would like you to provide your information before we have to conclude here so that everybody can get in touch with you. And then after this is all done, I'd like to have a chat with maybe Stephanie and you, and maybe arrange for you to come back because this is a big topic.
Yeah. And to the same with what you talk about, we'd love to have you on our show reciprocally and talk with our audience on really that honing in against that financial side. But you can find us, we're at parentprojects.com, at Parent Projects on any social media platform you could possibly think about. Parent Projects plural, that's what we got coming at us. And it is truly that easy. If you by phone, if you're still really loving it that way, 866-75-MOVED, anywhere in the country. We've been in our early market was here out of Arizona, and we are now pushing out across the country and starting in June. So check us out. And if we can help, if there's something you're looking for that's not even there, just ping us and ask. We have a whole group of concierges and people that just love in the background to go find answers to that and connect you, not just to resources, but to other families that are going through that at this point in time or have gone through it recently.
Tony, thanks for being part of the show today. I wish you the best in the future, and hopefully we can have you back. Everybody, this is Tony Siebers, Parent Projects. You definitely want to go to that website, especially, it doesn't matter how old your parents are, you want to go, because the more you can learn, the better. And with that, I want to thank you for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you next time, Tony. Hey, welcome back to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money. And right now, I'm going to be talking about the ins and outs of money. Specifically, we had a number of people, we had thousands of people who are really concerned about the Secure Act 2.0. Okay, so one of the big things here is this. If you didn't take your required minimum distribution, you used to have a 50% penalty. Now it's dropped down to 25%. The big thing to know here, it's in the distribution phase of your life. So you know what? That means if you didn't take your required minimum distribution for, say, 2023, and you found out in 2024, you can go back, amend the tax return, take the required minimum distribution, file your taxes, but you'll only get hit with a 10% penalty. Okay? So it's important to understand that drop down, but you can drop down even further to 10%. Next, if you have an in-plan Roth, okay, that means you have a Roth 401k, a Roth 403b, a Roth 457, a Roth TSA, TSP, that type of thing, okay? And you're of age to take a required minimum distribution, you still have to take that required minimum distribution. I understand it's tax-free, but you still have to take the required minimum distribution for tax year 2023. You won't in 2024. If you don't want to, roll it over to a Roth IRA. Next, this is very important. If you have an in-plan annuity, that means if it's in a 401k, 403b, 457, TSA, TSP, all those type of things in an in-plan annuity, which was designed to pay you for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and the amount that's being paid out to you exceeds your required minimum distribution, you could roll the excess over to the next year, to the next year, to the next year, okay? Next, if you're inheriting an IRA or a Roth IRA, and you're a non-spouse beneficiary, you have to take out everything within 5 years. Due to the updated Secure Act, you now have the ability to stretch the IRA for 10 years. Okay, got to make sure it's 10 years. Now, if you are inheriting a Roth IRA, you have to liquidate it within 10 years. Okay. On top of that, you have to take a required minimum distribution, whether it's an inherited IRA or inherited Roth IRA, during the period that you're waiting until you liquidate it. If you don't, you're going to get hit with that penalty. Now, some people said, Steve, how do I, not take my required minimum distribution? There's only one way you could defer that. It's called a qualified longevity annuity contract, especially known as QLAC, QLAC. And what it does is enable you to take 25% of your IRA up to $200,000, whatever's less, and defer taking that till you're 85. That's only, you know what, you can grow it a little bit, but you won't have to take it if that's the case. Contributions. In order for catch up, if you're 60, you have the ability to contribute $10,000 a year for 3 years, 61, 62, 63. I'm sorry, 60, 61, 62, that's 3 years. That's $30,000 you can put in there. All right. Now, the caveat there is if your income is less than $145,000 a year, hey, you know what? You could put it in your IRA. But if it's over $45,000 a year, you're going to have to pay taxes and put it into a Roth IRA. So it's important to understand those things. So those are the things that actually affect everybody. Look, I want to thank you for joining us here today on Saving with Steve. We're always talking about the ins and outs of money. We had Tony Siebers here talking about something very important, helping everybody who's getting older into that transition into life as they need help and health support, financial support, and so on. We'll be unpacking that a little bit more with Tony later on and a few other episodes. Again, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. That's all for me right here on Saving with Steve.